face was Dostal. And that goes out of play.
What a ridiculous save.
Costas pair. Bring it back. Natchez. Aho. Side of it. They score! Svechnikov! And keep this one on the board. Burns. Right back for Natchez. Natchez. To Jarvis in front. He scores! Seth Jarvis with the extra attacker. We're tied at 2. Chase. Going down the middle of the rink. His shot. He scores! Pyotr Gauthier goes far post, and the Ducks will win it in overtime. Gauthier, second of the game, and it's a 3-2 final. Anaheim takes it over Carolina. The Canes do get a point.
Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. Hope everything is well in your world. The Hurricanes, in fact, do get a point. They get one. Overtime losses will get you a point. That might be the difference between finishing ahead of the New Jersey Devils and not. So take the point, be happy with the point, and be mad at everything else. And we will talk about as much of it as we can on really a mixed emotions for me, end to the day. Mad that the Hurricanes didn't get both points here. And we'll go through it. Because I'm not even sure right now how to look at getting a point out of this because, to be perfectly honest, even though I thought Carolina was the better team, I wasn't sure that they were ever going to get a goal. And then you got one, and then it was taken away, which I thought was probably the right call. But, I was hoping that they would have ruled Aho was helped into the goaltender. Although I think you can make an argument that the goaltender caused, by putting his stick in between Aho's skates, caused his own goaltender interference. But Aho was in the crease, so you're probably not going to get the benefit of the doubt there. So again, I think it was the right call. Then you come right back and score the power play goal anyway. So good on you. Great pass from Aho to Svechnikov. And then you had plenty of opportunities, but I was still kind of annoyed with the continued soft passing. Like, you just have to make harder plays than Carolina has been making lately. And I'm not saying they've gotten away with it because they haven't. It's kind of reflected in the fact that this team is basically 500 over the last, month and a half. So you're not really getting away with it. I'll tell you what they're getting away with in a minute. And then you get the goal. You get the goal with just under a minute left. Great play by Seth Jarvis coming off the goal line extended. And we'll go through the goals and whatnot. But and that goal came after. I mean, did Seth Jarvis not whiff on a pass across from Svechnikov? I mean, it looked to me like that was tailor-made for Jarvis to bury that one, but Carolina kept possession of the puck, and ultimately Jarvis scores the goal. So at least they got a point. I mean, with 8 minutes left in the game, although you were on the power play, it was just about 9 minutes when Carolina went to the man advantage, maybe a little bit more. You got that much left in the game. You're still down 2-0. You've threatened, but you haven't really threatened. So you end up getting the goal, end up getting the power play goal, and then you get the next one, and you feel like, okay, we've been better than this team all game long. We should win the game. And then you don't, and we'll explain why in a minute. First of all, we are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. It says it right there. If it's for the exterior of your home, aluminumcompany.com. Roofing, siding, windows, entry doors, storm doors, gutter helmets. And by the way, after a grueling winter of heavy snowfall, not really in Raleigh, kind of disappointed in the snow. It shows. It shows that you need the Aluminum Company, so check them out. All right. There's really three main things we're going to talk about. Two of them are game related, and one is franchise related. So again, I go back to how do you look at 3-2 Anaheim in overtime? Are you happy with a point because you were down 2-0? Or are you mad that you didn't get 2? So I think you're justified if you're happy with a point. Because I think the team did play well. And I think they played better than the Ducks. I'm not sure that's the bar. So I'm not happy with a point. I'm happy they got a point. Happy they got something out of the game. But I stop short of saying they deserved more or even deserved the point, because for most of the game, Carolina was getting the shots they usually get with regularity, above the circles. That's fine. I have no problem with those shots. But what Carolina wasn't doing was creating visual traffic for Lukas Dostal, and he is dynamite. If he can see it, he's going to stop it. And for much of the night, Carolina wasn't giving him a hard time seeing it. There were too many situations where Carolina was in front. Like, I don't believe that. I mean, if you watch the game, there were Carolina players around the net, but you're to the side. What are we doing to the side? Get in front. Take his eyes away. Not enough of that. And you're just not going to beat NHL goaltenders from above the face-off circles, outside the dots, unless you've got bodies in front. And all you got to do is go back to the Vancouver game. Both goals. Now, granted, both shots were closer to the net, but both goals. The Stahl goal from actually above the hash marks, wasn't above the face-off circle. He gets the rebound of the Orlov shot, but that's because Robinson's in front, right? He's creating the havoc. And as good as Thatcher Demko is, Demko never saw it. He never saw the Stahl goal. Take his eyes away. The Svechnikov goal where he comes out of the corner. Martinook's causing traffic in front, causing trouble. All right? Again, it's a shot that Demko probably doesn't ever see. Those are the 2 goals they scored against Vancouver. None of Carolina's goals tonight, two of them, were that product. None of them were caused by net front presence. And when you're built to score the way Carolina is, that is a necessary part of your game. And it's unfortunate, but they kind of, a lot of those 37 shots on goal were kind of, And the truth of the matter is, if I could just go to this fancy thing we call the internet, the Canes had a bunch of scoring chances and a bunch of good ones, a lot of them late. But I didn't think they were super threatening for the lion's share of the game. No, this is not to say they didn't have chances. Martin Necas, you heard the highlight in the open. Martin Necas was absolutely flippin' robbed by Dostal. And I'm not going to be critical of Necas. I mean, it's a fact that he has no goals past the goalie in 18 games. 18 games. No goals past the goalie. He has the empty net goal. Was that against New Jersey? I forget the game. But that's the goal. It was a great empty net goal as empty net goals go. But still, that's the goal in the last 18 games. I mean, there just has to be more, right? He did get 2 assists tonight, and I thought he played a pretty good game. Not a great game, pretty good game. I don't know that anybody played a great game tonight. But they gotta get in front of the net. They just have to. There's not enough high-level skill on this team, and they've got some, obviously. You've got Necas, and you've got Aho, and you've got Jarvis, who's for all of his skill, he's more meat and potatoes than all of that. And I think Andrei is the same way. Again, not fancy. But they had chances, but there was just something a little bit lacking in the finish. And again, a lot of it is they just didn't have enough bodies in front of the net, making it more difficult for the goaltender. So you've got that. I think Carolina played well, but I think they played well to a point. Power play finally got on the board. We'll talk about that. The Ducks played yesterday in Philadelphia and were whipped. They lose 6-0 to the Flyers. They lost 6-2 the game before to St. Louis. You had a team that played last night. This is the game where Carolina should have jumped all over Anaheim early. You had the opportunity there. There was an opportunity for Robinson on a rebound of an Orlov shot. But that's like in the first 5 minutes or so. And the rest of the period, it was a lot of, again, shots above the circles. So there's that, right? There's the offensive part of this that kind of bothered me, even though Carolina was clearly better than Anaheim. But here's the part that this is where Carolina lost the game. And I know there were good saves. I know that Kochetkov made some good saves. But both Gauthier goals cannot be scored. You can't, NHL goaltenders on teams that are playoff contenders, teams that are hoping to go deep into a postseason, those goals cannot go. Not if you're the goaltender. And this is a game in which Carolina lost potentially 2 points. Again, let's remember that the first goal, Carolina still hadn't scored. Right? So it's hard to really equate what it's going to be. What is the penalty for that goal? Carolina got it even. So they got a point out of it. And then you give up the extra point when Kochetkov lets Gauthier score the game winner in overtime. The first goal is just played so poorly. Slavin does a good job to keep Gauthier wide to the left side. It's below the face-off dot. It's not a shot in close. All Kochetkov has to do is stay on top of his crease, cut the angle down, and stay upright. And there's no way the goal can go. But nope, he drifts back. He goes low, plenty of room. It actually brushed his right shoulder, I think, and then kind of went up into the net. I mean, that's an unacceptable goal. Your team rallied even after that. So the Hurricanes dug themselves out of that hole. And then I've seen some criticism for the Hurricanes in overtime. I mean, I think Brent Burns made a mistake once Carolina gained possession of the puck. Like, Burns needs to bring the puck back, maintain possession so Stahl can get off the ice, and Aho and Natchez can come on. And frankly, Burns needs to go off the ice too. So get the puck back to Slavin and go from there. Now, no harm, no foul. They did lose possession of the puck, but they regained it pretty quickly. And like, overtime is about possession. 100% about possession of the puck. And the Aho and Natchez didn't really have anything great, so you don't shoot it. You recycle. It's common sense when it comes to overtime, 3-on-3 overtime. I mean, if you skated around for 4 minutes and 45 seconds and you didn't like what you had, but you had the puck, you do it. That's just the way the overtime is played until they put in a shot clock, which I wouldn't be completely against the NHL doing that, although I've seen fewer games this year in which teams basically just waste time. But ultimately, it did lose possession of the puck. And Gauthier comes in. Nature's still on the ice, which I would have a little bit of a problem, but he's not at fault for the goal. Actually, only one person is at fault for the goal, and that's the goalie. He was, again, drifting, sliding. Look where he was when the goal goes in. He's outside of the frame of the net. So, and it brings back to mind so many games this year in which Kochetkov either played poorly throughout or he allowed that one goal that shouldn't go and it ended up costing you. Played great, but it's that one goal. Right? Tampa. We sit here all day long and blame Svechnikov for giving the puck, just sliding it out into center ice rather than getting the puck deep. You can blame Stahl for not being able to make a play on the Kucherov pass to point. But ultimately, if Kochetkov doesn't kind of panic in that situation, Point probably doesn't score because he was too close to the net. Kochetkov was jumpy. He lunged. I mean, there's so many examples this year where Kochetkov simply didn't do his job well. So how many points can you attribute to that? Even if we did a low assessment of that, even if we said 3 points this year, just tack on 3 points. Go ahead. Tack on 3 points to Carolina's total. Maybe it's a game like Tampa where you get nothing out of it, where if he makes that save, you go to overtime, maybe you win in overtime. So maybe that's a 2-point game. So even if you just tacked on 3 more points to Carolina's total, it's a big difference. I think the number's probably higher, to be honest. And here's my assessment of Carolina's goaltending, and we are now approaching the middle of January. What month is this? So we are now, when Carolina plays next, it'll be dead in the middle of February. It's still January, Adam. It'll be the 15th of January. Hurricanes will have 37 games left. Frederik Andersen played 4 of the first 7. And right now, my assessment of Carolina's goaltending is this. Carolina has a backup goaltender, a minor league goaltender acting as a backup goaltender, and a minor league goaltender as their next best option in the minor leagues. That's Carolina's goaltending. It's freaking remarkable that this team is arguably second in the Metropolitan Division. With games in hand and whatever, they're basically, 1 point behind the Devils with a game in hand? So, I guess I shouldn't assume a win. But, okay, so they're going to make the playoffs in spite of their goaltending. No other way to look at it. Sorry. And if this sounds harsh, that I'm blaming Pyotr Kochetkov, I'm not. We just spent the first part of it talking about how Carolina wasn't good enough offensively. They were good, but not good enough. So I go back to not entirely sure they deserved better than they got tonight, because there was more for them to give. Now, I will offer this. This was the 6th game in 9 days, right? I think it was the 6th game in 9 days. That seems a lot. Now, they did add the Tampa game back into the schedule because of the game that was Hurricane Miltoned out second night of the season. But there you go. So I think going into the season, the Hurricanes as an organization probably looked at this year as not a reset year, but hey, we're not going to compete for a cup. We think we're a playoff team. We're going to set ourselves up to be whatever next year. Well, so the Hurricanes, and I said before the season, thinking the Hurricanes were not a playoff team was silly to me. They were always going to be a playoff team. And they are. I've also been talking about goaltending for about a month and a half. They rolled the dice, and they're gonna get away with it. They're gonna get away with not having good enough goaltending for 4 months of the season. If you say November, December, January, February, because I don't think we're going to see Frederik Andersen until after the Four Nations tournament. Maybe he comes back before. Even 12 weeks puts it at early February. 12 weeks from the time he went down puts it at early February. So if he's back before Four Nations, oh, great. But my assumption always was it's never earlier with Andersen. It's always later. So I've always assumed whenever the Four Nations tournament is over, which is the very end of February, that's when we would see Andersen. Okay. So the Hurricanes basically have 1 more month without Freddie. And they are fortunate, lucky, that there's nobody pushing them behind them. Because then it would be dicey. Then you would be talking about a wild card spot. And a wild card spot, look, I think you can beat Washington. I think Washington is having a great year. But I think the Capitals are very, very beatable. I believe right in my heart, the best team in the East is still Florida. After that, I think it's anybody's guess. I actually think the Devils are the next best team, but I think the Hurricanes are every bit as good as the Devils. They're not as good offensively as the Devils I don't care what goals say. I don't think they're as good offensively as the Devils, but I think they can be better defensively. And I think there are things they can do against New Jersey that will hurt them. But none of it matters if you don't have better goaltending. Now, when Freddie comes back, I think the Hurricanes' goaltending will be fine. Might even be excellent, to be honest. And then they have to manage Andersen's workload even in the playoffs. And this is where I've talked about it before, and my only criticism of what happened last year was that Kochetkov was not more involved early, not for him, but for Freddie, because Freddie wore down. He needs more time. You can play him 2, maybe 3 games in a row, but then you got to get to the next guy, even if there's room in between games. I'm not talking about back-to-backs. The mistake, said it last year. I said it a billion times since then. Probably not a billion. Maybe a few 100,000. Kochetkov should have gotten either the game 3 start or the game 4 start against the Islanders. You're up 3-0. Less than 48 hours between games 3 and 4. That would have been a Kochetkov game for me. And then you come back with Andersen in game 5 if you needed him. And if not, boom. Well, Freddie ended up playing all 5. And then by the time we got to the Rangers series, he wasn't the same. Did he wear down? I think so. He was no good in the Rangers. He was decent early. Rangers power play undressed Carolina. And the Hurricanes didn't have home ice advantage in the series, and they lost both games in New York, then lost game 3, which Kochetkov started, which he didn't play all that well in. And at that point, it was about Freddie. And that's unfortunate because Freddie's last 10 games of the regular season, you can look it up. He was off the charts great. He earned the spot. So that's my assessment of Carolina's goaltending. We're waiting for Frederik Andersen, and then it's about managing Freddie. Because right now, this organization has decided, and they probably won't add anything significant. And I'm not saying they should. This year, to me, and they're proving it, was always about, let's get through it. We'll get the best we can out of it. Next year, we'll attack. And there might be some different opinions today as opposed to a month ago about who's going to be around to attack going forward, but whatever. We can have those discussions later. But it does come down to goaltending. This team would be in a much better spot if the goaltending were better. Not to mention the fact that you played how many games with Spencer Martin as your number one? No joke. No offense, but if you claim a goaltender off waivers and the following year at some point he's your number one goaltender, you've probably made a mistake somewhere. Or gotten, a ton of bad luck. And both things could be true. Hey, it was good to see a power play goal. So Carolina's second power play tonight gets the goal. I didn't like the minute or so they had of power play time in the first period, or the first time they had it. I guess it was in the second period. They kind of farted around for that. But this power play was good. They were lively. They had good puck movement, good player movement. Still had some issues with decision-making with the puck that I hope they'll move past in the near future. But they scored twice on it. Only one of them counted. The second goal counted. Great pass across from Aho to Svechnikov for the goal. All right, I don't want to end this without bringing up the fact that we did see the first ever superstar, homegrown superstar for the Carolina Hurricanes, have his name go up in the rafters tonight. It was a great ceremony, classy ceremony. The number of players who came back for this. Hedeken works for the Ducks, so he might have been here anyway, although his job is more player development. So he didn't. I'm sure he doesn't necessarily travel with the team, but since he works for the Ducks, he's here. I know he used to do TV for San Jose, but now has an actual hockey job working with Anaheim. So he was in town. He might have been 10 anyway. Jim Rutherford was just here with Vancouver and stuck around. Yeah, I know. He lives here in the summer. Lives in Raleigh in the summer, but still, normally he would be on the road with Vancouver, who, by the way, last night played in Toronto. So he was here, but all of the guys who came back, Ray Whitney and Mike Commodore. I just spoke to Commodore the other day. It was Wednesday of last week. He was actually with Ray Whitney, and they were about to go play golf on Wednesday. So, there were guys who flew in from everywhere. Derek Stepan came in from Minnesota. They're apparently neighbors in Minnesota. And you have the usual suspects, the guys who live here, the Eric Coles, the Aaron Wards. Justin Williams obviously works for the team. Cam Ward he lives here. But there were so many, guys who came in, flew in. Corey Stillman, Tuomo Ruutu. Ruutu works for Florida. He was an assistant coach in Florida. He was here. Now, he's not playing in the alumni game tomorrow. And I don't believe Corey Stillman is playing in the alumni game tomorrow. But those guys came in for Eric. It's awesome. Very classy ceremony. And somebody, by the way, shouts to Hurricanes fans who were in the building early. My fear, about 15 minutes before the ceremony started, I was looking around. It wasn't empty, but it looked like a Tuesday night game in 2014 against the Ottawa Senators. That's what it looked like to me. Yeah, there are people here, but there are a lot of empty seats, a lot of red. I saw a lot of red seats. And then about 5 minutes before the ceremony started, it started to fill up. And then when Tripp Tracy came out to start it, and Tripp did a great job, I looked around. I'm not saying every seat was full, but the building was, there were a lot of people in. And I felt great for Eric. Huge ovation for him, obviously. But I've said this before, and you don't want to dwell on it. at the end, just like with Cam Ward, it wasn't great at the end for Eric Staal. And I know it's just normal fan behavior. Who's our best player? We're not good. Our best player must not be good. Not as good as we think he is. Well, Eric Staal was great. He's somebody who one day could end up in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know that he gets there before the head coach, but we hope the head coach will get there as well. But in terms of Carolina Hurricanes, 909 games played, first all time. Jordan Staal, by the way, is at 866. 37 games left this year. He can't catch Eric this year. Early next year, Jordan Staal will pass his brother Eric for the most games played in Hurricanes history. Sebastian Aho is going to have those records anyway. Goals, 322. Aho is probably 2 years away. He's on 267. Assists, 453. Aho's probably early in the third year of passing Eric Staal on the assist mark. He might be able to get the points mark if he averages 90 points a year. Let's say 85, whatever he gets at the end of this year, plus he'll get it somewhere in the late in the second year. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Aho is a 90-point-a-year guy still. And so, but right now it's Eric Staal. And he's the first of the homegrown stars. Aho will be the second. Aho can never be what Eric Staal was to this franchise. And I'm happy for Eric, who, again, struggled late, production-wise and reaction-wise, and was a solid human being throughout. He was such a great dude. And I'm glad he had this day. I'm glad his family had it. And they'll have another one at some point. Might not be to this extent when everybody honors Jordan Staal. And hopefully Jordan Staal raises a Stanley Cup with the Hurricanes. I mean, the Canes window ain't closing. This is the dip. I think this year is the dip. I think they go back up and they'll be better next year. Have another year, maybe. They'll get some guys a little bit healthier. And you'll get another year out of Jackson Blake, and maybe some of those other guys in the minor leagues are ready to step in. Plus, you get Alexander Nikishin next year. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about the future, but tonight was about the past. Tonight was about Eric Staal being honored, and it was a great ceremony, and I'm glad I watched it. It was a little emotional. I thought Eric kind of cracked up there for a second, but it was great. I'm glad I was here for it. I just wish the Hurricanes would have honored it with 2 points tonight, but they didn't get them. With that said, we're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. I appreciate your time. I didn't go through the chat today. I'm sorry. I wanted to get a bunch of things out, and I went a little bit longer than I normally would anyway. So shouts to you for hanging on and putting up with this. And we'll do it again Wednesday after the Hurricanes take on the Buffalo Sabres. Hey, I will tell you this in advance, because I read the comments and whatnot from like the reviews on Apple. I usually use Apple. I know some people use Spotify. Some people use Google Play. I usually use Apple, and that's where I read the comments or the reviews. And I appreciate you if you either subscribe and like to this here, because we do it live after every Hurricanes game. And if you don't do that, wherever you get your podcast, download it, subscribe to it, rate it, review it, all of that. I understand that there are games that I miss because, life. Friday, where are the Hurricanes on Friday? Hold on. Hurricanes are home against Vegas. I will not be here. Monday in Chicago. I will not be here. I'm pretty sure I can't do. I might be able to get to. I might be able to watch the game on Monday. I can't watch the game on Friday, but I will be able to. I think I'll be able to watch the game on Monday. And if I am, then I'll jump on and do a podcast. But if I'm not much sense doing it, right? So don't moan. Don't moan. Where's Gold? He's not here. I really rely on this. I read the reviews. All right. We got to go. I appreciate your time. Too bad the Hurricanes couldn't get 2 points against the Ducks. Get back on it on Wednesday against Buffalo. Until I will see you on the Canes Corner podcast. Good night.